Now, it was the deadliest attack in Norway since World War II. Almost 1 year ago, on the 22nd of July 2011, as Breivik detonated a bomb in Oslo's government quarter, killing 8 people. Murders continued on the island of Utøya a few hours later, where he shot dead 69, mostly teenage members of the governing Labour Party, who were on a summer camp.
Your trial will offer you a stage to the world, and as Breivik wrote in the 1,800-page manifesto posted on the internet before the attacks. When that trial began in April, the responsibility for prosecuting the crime fell to Inga Bejer Engh. Her reaction to Breivik's Nazi salute was to shake hands with him. Breivik used the trial, which ended last week, as a platform for his far-right political views, arguing that his victims were legitimate targets in his war against Marxist multiculturalism. But she also heard the harrowing testimony of survivors who escaped the gun of a man whose only regret is that he didn't kill more. Bejer Engh spent the trial demolishing Breivik's far-fetched claims to be part of a network of right-wing extremists styling themselves the Knights Templar. The prosecution concluded that far from being a terrorist, he was in fact insane and not responsible for his crimes at all, a suggestion Breivik himself claimed was offensive. In August, a panel of judges will decide whether Norway's most notorious killer will serve his sentence in a prison cell or a psychiatric ward.
Earlier, I caught up with the chief prosecutor in the Breivik trial, Inga Bejer Engh. He was obviously guilty of killing people, but equally obviously he wanted a platform for his views. He wanted a stage to the world, as he put it. How concerned were you about that aspect of the trial?
Well, that's been a discussion in the media, especially in Norway, and I think that discussion is, I would say, meaningless in a way, but it's, I can't take that discussion too seriously, because he is accused of a crime, and when he's accused, he has certain rights, and one of the principal rights he has in court is to speak or make a statement in court, and I think it's very important that we hold on to our rules and principles, even though we are facing a horrible crime like this.
In court, Breivik gave a Nazi salute, and then you walked up and shook his hand. Why did you do that?
We did that once, the first day of court, and we always do that in court. Every trial I have, no matter what the accused has done, I go up to them and I shake hands with them. And I think the rest of the people, that had a role in court also did that. All the other lawyers.
And you don't feel any
important.
You don't feel any qualms about that? I mean, this is a man, obviously with blood on his hands, who's given a Nazi salute in a country occupied by the Nazis, where there are people alive today who remember that occupation. Wasn't it quite offensive?
It was offensive when he did it, and I think his lawyer told him not to do it, and he stopped. But in order to shake his hand, I think it's my goal has been to treat him as any other criminal, and I think that's important. And I think we managed to do it, and I think most of the people have respect for that view in a way. Some people will probably disagree with us, but for me it was important to treat him like all the other criminals that I bring to court.
Even though you argued in court that this man is insane?
Well, I had to argue. I was not sure when we started the trial. We were not able to conclude on that. But in order to have or to face a prison sentence in Norway, you have to be sane. And if there's any reasonable doubt about that condition, we are obliged to propose to the court to make a sentence in compulsory mental health care and not ordinary prison sentence. So that's like, if it's a reasonable doubt, and it was reasonable doubt after we finished 10 weeks, we had 2 court-appointed forensic psychiatrists that had stated that he was psychotic. and he was that the 22 of July, and he still is. And they stated that he had major or massive delusions.
So how important is it for you to get that as a verdict? How important do you think it is for the families that he is regarded as insane and not in some way totally responsible for his actions?
My experience during the trial was that for some families it was very important that he was looked upon as sane and, sentenced to ordinary prison sentence. But for some other people, they were not so concerned about it. But I think that what is like common for all of them, that they need to feel secure that he's gonna be away. He's gonna be locked up. If it's in a hospital or it is in prison, it doesn't really matter that much for some people. But they need to feel sure that they're not gonna meet him in the street.
But isn't that a soft option if he ends up in a mental hospital rather than if he ends up in prison? In other words, you've bent over backwards to be humane and decent and tolerant to a defendant, but you also owe a duty to those who have suffered most grievously, who would like to see this man punished, some of whom would like to see him executed.
Yes, but when we face crimes like we could not believe, like this crime, I think my role as a prosecutor is to follow the law and the principles that we have a long tradition, and that's why I do it and not the ones that have been hurt, because it's a lot of feelings there.
Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. Thank you. Now the review show is